Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to IT Carlow's part. I'm Damien Raftery, and together with my colleagues in the Teaching and Learning Centre, Gina Noonan and Kathy, we have been delighted to work with our colleagues across the Southern Cluster on this National Forum funded project. Thanks to Tom and Tara and UCC for hosting us in this lovely room, and I'm going to be introducing some of my colleagues, the digital champions from IT Carlow, in a moment to participate in this very interesting exchange of ideas, of experience and of practice. So the first person up is Dr. Noel O'Hara, who's been working with Dr. Yvonne Kavanagh.
Hi. So our project was to use virtual reality. You see the kind of headsets there. And virtual reality is, it kind of transports you to another world, so it feels like you're somewhere else. And we want to use that to see if it helps students' understanding of going from the equations of motion to the actual physical motions like projectile motion, acceleration and friction, that kind of stuff. So most of the project, part of the digital champion thing, was to investigate what you need, what kind of setup hardware and software you need to set up to create these environments. So we used an Oculus Rift, which is a headset. It's kind of similar to the things there, but it's tethered to a PC. So you need a PC and a headset. And we had an Oculus Rift in the department, so we used that. And it's a very new technology, so it's that DK2 means development kit, so it's not the consumer version yet. And there was a number of kind of game engines you can use to create these environments, and we choose a thing called Unity 3. It's very advanced, and there's a really good free version that you can use. And so you just get a plug-in for the Oculus Rift, and then you can create your 3D environments. But there's still a lot of programming involved in this, and we use, well, it's called C#, it's kind of Microsoft's Java. And a new term that came recently is VR Ready PC. So the thing about VR, you really need a powerful graphics card, and that 90 means 90 frames per second. So you really need to keep the frames being updated. Otherwise, if it's not updated, you can get motion sickness. So you don't want that to happen to students. So you really need a powerful setup, and it's quite expensive. And for the physics part of it, Unity 3D supports an awful lot of physics simulations. So you can create objects and give them a mass, a bounciness, and you can change gravity around and things like that. So you can do an awful lot by dragging and dropping. But what we want to do is go from the equations of those physics to those simulations. So you do have to create a kind of game-like experience. We did some fairly basic ones, but we're looking at creating more engaging ones. The trouble with one of the things about virtual reality, they're kind of stuck in that world, so if it's not engaging, it gets boring very quickly. So you have to give it a more game-like experience so the students can enjoy it more. So further onto this, we look at Oculus and virtual reality as kind of a learning platform that can be applied to other areas. That's it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Noel. Our next digital champion is John Fogarty.
Hi, John Fogarty is my name. I was looking at animating the classroom, or at least that was the title of the project. And, you know, it was really an attempt to see how we could enhance student engagement. So it was using animation to develop a reusable learning object and to use that within the classroom to convey key information of the lecture. So as part of the project, I was looking at both software and hardware. So software at different levels of animation, so from very basic introductory level to intermediate and in time more advanced animation software. Obviously, the more advanced you go, you get more customizability, but at the expense of complexity, and it gets quite complex. Some of the hardware I'll be looking at is graphics tablets and stuff, and see how usable and useful they'd be in helping with this. So as part of the project to assess whether any of this was worthwhile, an experiment was conducted So 2 separate class groups were used. They both do the same module. So one group was shown the animation covering the key information of the topic that we were looking at, and the other class was given the standard lecture. And I have to say, it was by a very good lecturer. So, yeah, it was a psychology module, and the thing we were looking at, there's apparently 9 reasons we remember things that we remember. So that was the thing that was animated, and for each of those 9 things, about a 30-second animation was developed, and it was compiled then into about a 5-minute animation piece that the students in one group watched, the students in the other group didn't get to see. So I'm going to show you, not this guy, I'll show you vividness is one of the things we remember what we remember. So this is Viv on a fire station. It's only a short little piece. And if you miss it, you can catch it on the Cartoon Network. Okay.
We're live here at the vivid scene of the burning fire station. Cross over immediately to vividness on the rooftop. Viv!
A vivid scene here at the fire station as flames engulf the building. The vividness. The scene will help people remember this for a long time. Whoa! What was that? Well, I think it's time to get off the building.
Anyway, that was Viv. It was done in a package called Movie Zoo, which is a very nice package of intermediate level, I suppose. You know, there's some degree of customizability, but there's a limit to how much you can do in it. So students were shown this in one class group, and both class groups the following day, 24 hours later, were assessed. So it was an unannounced assessment, so to capture how much each group had remembered from what they had seen. So the results of that were as shown. So of the students who saw the video, they remembered on average 3.5 out of 9, which equates to about 38%. The students who didn't see the video remembered 1 out of 9, which is about 11%. So I think it tells us more about what they forget than what they remember, really. But so just to finish up then, some reflections on it. Obviously, there was a learning curve for me, which slowed the whole thing down, and so, I mean, for the short little video you saw there, like there was hours of work actually went in to produce it. And one of the big things that takes up time in producing these kind of things is coming up with some kind of storyline that you're going to use to develop your animation around. And so, yeah, payback is quite low as compared to the amount of input that goes into it. But obviously with time and practice, if you had a dedicated learning technologist, your payback would obviously rise accordingly, because the amount of time going into it would be a lot less. The other thing, I suppose, in relation to those survey results that you're aware of is obviously for the class who saw the video, it was something different, something novel. So quite possible they responded to that, and if they're being shown video of that sort, they're not going to pay much attention in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Next up we have Annette and Irene.
Well, as you can see, I drew the short straw today and I had to present. Irene and I collaborated together and we were looking at feedback and grading. So it's not as exciting as animation or the virtual world, which went ahead of us. Irene looked at basically marking on a script to grading and feedback and turn it in with her first year students, their PR and media students. How do we move this down? This is, Irene's focus was hopefully to move into, actually Irene describes herself as an analog person in the digital world. So this was quite a big move for Irene. And she found Turnitin, again, very time consuming, setting it all up. But once she's hoping next year, it'll be a big time saving for her. As you can see, you have a grading, rubrics in the corner, and she's able to drag in the comments onto the script. So it took an awful lot of time for her to set it up and get it right, but hopefully she'll be able to use it again next year. However, when she surveyed her students to see did they like it, being PR students, they actually felt, yeah, it was good, but they still like feedback coming from the lecturer. So they're a bit, they like the social aspect of speaking to the lecturer directly themselves also. I think that's correct, isn't it, Irene? Yeah. Moving on, I was already grading and giving feedback in Blackboard. So Turnitin was also there. I didn't use it very much. But I had a few issues with Blackboard. I just didn't feel it was really that good, as you can see here. This is a script here and the comments are on the side. So I had a look at comparing the two and maybe seeing would Turnitin be any better. This is another script with Turnitin, and you can see over on the right-hand side, the comments are there and the students just have to drag over the comments and have a look at them. And again, then this is like the little quick marks in Turnitin that you can drag onto the script. Now, I found the grading easier to use in Blackboard, but I found the feedback and comments easier to use in Turnitin. When I looked at what the students found, 25% of my students actually didn't read the comments at all. So I was a bit disappointed because I use it for not only summative assessment, but also for formative towards their final exam. And I did say to them, towards your final exam, make sure you go back and read those feedback comments on that script. And they still haven't read the feedback comments, 25% of them. So that was really disappointing, and also it's just a waste of my time. So I think for the future, moving on, I'm looking at, for me, I'm looking at maybe having a way of getting the students to read the feedback before they get the grade, because once they get the grade, they don't really care what the feedback is. So that's one thing. Irene and myself found that time is a big issue in preparing it all, but maybe hopefully next year it'll pay off. So preparing everything is a big issue. So Irene was really happy with it, so I think she's going to go ahead and use it, aren't you, Irene? Yeah, I'm really happy with it, but I still have a few issues on which one to use. And again, we need to spread the word a little bit more on grading online and feedback online. Okay, and again, can I just say thanks to our teaching and learning, Damien and Gina. Only for them, we'd have had lots of problems and arguments and fights. But they're a great help, the Teaching and Learning Centre. Thanks very much to everyone.
As usual, Irene wants the last word for 10 seconds.
Yeah, the last word. Just that for us working on one thing, that it's a very instrumental type of thing to use, turn it in, but really it's a very small project, but it's underpinned by something very important because it really does increase fairness. The student can access all these things. Like if you believe in that kind of democratic thing, that they can go and look at that feedback any time and that's really important. And it's not just all about us being upset that they didn't come to the feedback session for the 2-minute chat. So I think that's important.
Okay, thanks Annette, thanks Irene. Next, Dara O'Brone, Dr. Dara O'Brone will present, and as you can see, Noel has been very busy. He's involved with this project as well.
Morning, or afternoon, is it? Afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dara O'Brien, and myself and Noel here, we worked on a project about momentum and engagement in lab classes. So we work in the computing department, so our classes were practical classes in computing, but this same thing will apply even if it's a different subject that you're teaching, so you can stay awake. So basically what we noticed is there a lack of collaboration. We also noticed that the level of engagement fluctuated, so there's a lot of distractions nowadays. You got your Facebook, you got your games, you got your YouTube, you got other people there, lots of other things to be doing instead of actually doing the tasks that you're supposed to be doing in the practical classes. What we noticed was that when you have deadlines, so you have to have this thing finished by the end of class or by the start of the next class, you get a lot of people motivated then. A lot of people start going, here it is, here it is, here it is. So we thought we might use that and make something to use that to make more deadlines, basically putting more deadlines through the lab to get people more engaged. So they'd have to have, instead of having one thing at the end, they'd have to do a lot of different pieces and they have to submit them. But then we realized, of course, well, there's only one of us and there's whatever, 30 of them, so how are we going to possibly be able to check all of these things through the whole class? So we decided what we'd do is we would have a look at peer reviewing. So as well as our reviewing, so we review some of it and we'd also get them to review each other. The key piece as well is that, we brought in a locking element. So rather than before where we have our whole lab sheet where you can just see the whole thing, we have pieces of it locked. So basically until you've done your first piece, this is it's a computer games lab. So until you've done the first step here, until you've drawn this square on the screen, and you have that reviewed by somebody else, you can't actually progress on to the next piece. So at the top you can see the number of reviews. So that's the red square at the top is the number of reviews that are needed, that are waiting. When there are people waiting to get something reviewed. So here is how they review. So they basically paste in this case it's computer code, but it could be any kind of text or pictures. And then the other students will rate that. And once they've rated it, then the next step of the lab becomes available. And there's basically those squares up there, there's kind of three pieces. The first is kind of 3/3. The first third is that you've submitted your step. The second one is that it's been reviewed by a peer. And for the steps that were needed for a lecturer to review as well, then it would look like that. So you can see, the students can see the progress throughout the lab. Okay, so what happened, we did it, 23 students, first year computer games class, promising signs of increasing game. They liked seeing each other's work because normally they don't actually see each other's work. But the problem was they weren't actually experienced doing peer reviews. So, and also they put in a lot of content, and some students got quite impatient because they'd have to wait. Instead of being able to go on to the next step, they'd have to wait for their work to be reviewed before they could do it. So in terms of future work, what we are going to do next year is scaffold the training, so actually give people training, do reviews that we've done already, so that there are already they're already kind of give them examples of work that's already been done, that's already been reviewed, and they can learn how to review it before they start reviewing other people's. And the second point we're looking at is what other changes can we make to the system to make people make more careful and helpful reviews rather than just going, yep, that's fine, yep, that's fine. So I'm out of time, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And our last Digital Champion project is presented by Ronan Lynch of our library team. Simon and Bridget are here, and hopefully Mary is making a lot of noise in the library back in Carlow. Sorry.
Díomh Claire, Tá Lánsásta Osfu Coranov. My name is Ronan Lynch, and I am the subject librarian for engineering in IT Carlow. I'm representing a team of 4 that completed this project. In the photograph you see Bridget Carey in the centre, and then on the right hand side, well my right, is Simon Perry, who's getting to grips with the camera there, and also Mary Delaney. So the 4 of us worked on this project together. Our project, we hugely collaborated as well with the Defence Force staff, and in the photograph you'll also see staff from the Defence Forces, the Registrar's Office, the library, teaching staff and students as well. So our project came about because IT Carlow is delivering programs to Defence Force students, but they reported to us that they're highly unlikely to visit us on campus in Carlow. So this meant that we weren't going to be able to support them as a library. So we looked at how we'd support them from a distance, remotely, and technology seemed to be the right answer for that. So to do that then, we set about establishing and developing their digital literacy. So what we created then is we created a toolkit, a set of 7 online tutorials, each short, about 10 minutes long. We tackled the main subjects that we thought they needed to establish and get the foundations in, which is how to search, how to interrogate online resources, how to plan your research, how to evaluate your results, and to give people the confidence in using resources, especially how to use information ethically and avoid plagiarism as well. We used a mixed media approach. We used screencasts, we made videos, we took photos. It was reported back to us that the preference would be if it was narrated, so we included narrations. We also included quizzes and animations. The main software programs we use is Articulate Studio. You saw them being demonstrated, and we also use Screencast Somatic as well. Our project, there's a lot of research behind it. Information literacy theory and principles has been part of librarianship for the last 30, 40 years. And now with technology, this has transferred and evolved into applying them to using the library online resources and electronic resources. So these are the principles that underlie our project. We collaborated not just with the staff, the teaching staff and students, but also this project wouldn't come about without the input and collaboration from the Defence Force Library. We also consulted widely to see what other libraries are doing, and also got a lot of support from our own Teaching and Learning Centre at IT Carlow, especially Damien, and the IT services in Carlow as well. So what we learned, some of us had dabbled, Simon had dabbled in using software such as Articulate before, but the rest of us hadn't. So it was a steep learning curve for us, but the great advantage of working as a team, when one of us had a eureka moment, we could tell the other or steer them through the rapids as we progressed. We, as a library and library staff, we increased our awareness of what is already available out there to support learners, and we also had to revisit what is information literacy as librarians, and also how information literacy, and which transfers to digital literacy, supports specialist cohorts. Articulate then we had to master. Articulate is a fantastic program. It allows you to package a tutorial in a logical step-by-step, and allows you to steer the learner. So it was absolutely fantastic for this project. At the moment we are receiving feedback from students, and already we are getting positive reports that students do recognise this will be beneficial to them. It will overcome the distance, the fact that the students are located in the Curragh, that's where their courses are delivered, that the technology and this programme will overcome that. And that's it. Okay.
Bridget Carey, I'm the Business and Humanities Librarian at IT Carlow.
And what TEL tool has your course benefited from the most?
Our course has benefited from the software Articulate Studio, so we used that a lot in our tutorial to create all our online slides and so on. So it was good, very good.
And what resource do you think is most helpful to your students?
The resource that we have found very helpful when we were creating our tutorials, I suppose, is screencasting, because in terms of the nature of what we do in our library tutorials, it's great to have an online tool to show the step-by-step guide to doing things online. So it's great to have that tool to show that, you know, in a logical sequence. So it's very helpful.
And finally, what is the one piece of advice you would give to someone starting out with TEL?
The best piece of advice that I could give to anyone starting out with TEL is to ask questions, ask the experts that are working in your college. We found the people in our teaching and learning centre to be excellent. They always had time for us. They always sat down and helped us with our tutorials. Any little glitches that we had or anything, they were just absolutely super and brilliant. So just keep asking, and don't be afraid to get stuck in creating your content.
My name's Irene McCormick, Dr. Irene McCormick, and I'm a lecturer in Media Studies in IT Carlow.
Great, thank you. So can you just tell me, what TEL tool has your course benefited from the most?
I think at the moment what we're seeing is the most important for media and PR students is actually the mobile phone. And we're finding that those students, instead of using all the kind of equipment we're using here, which is fantastic, that we're downsizing to using mobile phone. It's very flexible. They can create their messages and stories on that, and it's really the way forward.
Great, thank you. What resource do you think is most helpful to students?
I think at the moment students are really finding maybe that the Blackboard resource is really, really good, but if we're to be truly honest, for media and PR students, YouTube is fantastic. If they're doing anything like this, they're creating video or editing, a lot of their questions are answered by watching basic YouTube videos that enthusiasts have put up there.
Great, brilliant. And finally, what is the one piece of advice you would give to someone starting out with TEL?
I think if you are starting out with TEL, the piece of advice I'd give is do get involved in something like these digital champion initiatives, because none of us ever have enough time to do what we really want to do, but if we're given a deadline and a project, we will complete, and I think that's the best way to approach this.